This is the Crowdcrux Crowdfunding Podcast with Sal Briggman, where we cover everything you need to know to launch a successful crowdfunding campaign. We speak with proven entrepreneurs who've raised money from the crowd and want to teach you how to do the same. Stay tuned because we're about to reveal how to launch your dream project with your host, Sal Briggman.
Before we get started with this podcast episode, I want to take a second to introduce you to my friends at Fulfillrite. If you need help shipping out your Kickstarter or Indiegogo perks or rewards, Fulfillrite is the absolute best company for you. I've been working with them for a while and I can vouch for their services. They make it dead simple and take all of the headache out of shipping out all of those boxes, all of those orders to your backers and your customers. If you want to check them out, go to fulfillrite.com at fulfillrite.com. What up, crowdfunders? Salvador Briggman here with the Crowdfunding Demystified podcast. If it is your first time tuning in today, on this show, we talk about how to raise money successfully on websites like Kickstarter and Indiegogo. So the format of the show is I bring on guests, entrepreneurs, and creative types who have successfully raised money on these different sites. And we get into exactly what they did to do that, how they got backers, how they marketed their campaign, how they got the word out, how they got attention, all of that kind of stuff. We really get into what they did to make the campaign a success. And I tease out these tactics and strategies that you can use and apply to your own crowdfunding campaign. So you can use these, you can copy them, and you can implement them with your own crowdfunding campaign so you can raise much more money. And on today's episode, I brought on an entrepreneur who's raised over $80,000 on Kickstarter from 1,315 backers. So that's a lot of people that have bought his product, a lot of early adopters who now he can, in the future, launch more projects, he can launch other products, he can set up an online store, etc. And I think that for this type of show, I usually have on people who have raised like $1 million or, something crazy like $500,000. And I was talking with this entrepreneur and he was saying that as one of the listeners of this podcast, he really related to the people who were having more realistic raises. So if you're trying to raise, $80,000 or $100,000 or $50,000, this is going to be the episode for you because you're going to actually dive in really deep in terms of what he did to hit his goal within the first 20 hours. Not only did he hit his goal within the first 20 hours, I think that was a goal of about $30,000, but he also collected an email list of more than 10,000 leads going into his campaign. And he shares with you how he did that, what he did to gather these leads, his cost per lead, the things that he actually did to propel this campaign throughout the fundraising process, the things he would do differently, all of that kind of stuff you're going to hear on today's podcast episode. And if you haven't yet, if you're raising money right now or you're gearing up for the launch of an upcoming campaign, it can be a very, very lonely journey. It's hard to do it by yourself, particularly if you're not in like a major metropolitan area like New York or in San Francisco where everyone else is doing, small businesses and startups and these different things. It's hard to get into a mindset where you're just really certain and you're excited and you're motivated. So if you feel that way and you'd rather, be talking with other entrepreneurs, you'd rather be networking with other people doing Kickstarter campaigns and learning from their campaigns and what the advice that they have for you, you can go to kickstarterforum.org. That is kickstarterforum.org. This is a website that I set up for my community a few years ago. Actually, I set this up in 2013. So it's probably been actually, what is this, 5 years now? So this website has grown into a bustling community. More than 7,000 people are registered there, are actively sharing their products, are talking about the things they've learned. It's really for the Crowdfunding Demystified listenership, for the people that follow my blog, crowdcrux.com, that follow my YouTube channel. So if you want to join that and join other people who are going through the same process as you can go to kickstarterforum.org. You just register. You have to enter your email address and some other information, and it's free, and then you can join the community there. Without further ado, let's get into today's podcast episode. Sebastian, welcome to the podcast. It's been awesome to not only watch your campaign and see the success that it's had, but also you sent me a really great email. Like, this email just literally captured my attention. It says, what I've learned from hitting 100% of my goal in 20 hours. Then you included a few different bullet points that you learned, things that you took away that the audience can really take practically when they're doing their campaign. So kudos on that pitch. That totally got my attention, and welcome to the show.
Thanks, Al. It's awesome to be here, having listened to a lot of your shows. I've probably got to make an admission. I used to work in PR, so that's probably why the pitch worked pretty well.
Yeah, I think it's really apt. And honestly, anyone who is interested in getting an interview, whether on my show or other people's shows, just having those bullet points, man, that just totally sold me. It just gave me an idea of what the interview could look like. So that's very smart from your PR background. I am curious. So if you've been listening to this show, have you had any interviews that have stood out to you that other people should check out?
I think I mentioned that in my pitch to you as well, the Lumography interview. That was one that I probably listened to a couple of times and then would scrub back and forward to specific parts in it, just because the combination of it being a physical product and the way they went into detail around the logistics and getting that product out, as well as the campaign management itself, was super interesting to me. So I think that was episode 129 or something like that. Maybe.
Yeah, episode 129. They had an incredible product too. Man, that was a very professional, well done campaign. And they really did share a lot in that interview. So I urge people to go check that out, episode 129. So where are you hailing in from? Where are you located around the world?
So you can probably tell I'm Australian originally, but I'm in Austin, Texas at the moment. So I'm here for about a month, and then I'm back in Melbourne, where I'm from in Australia, which is where my design and engineering team is. So the reason I'm in the States is my girlfriend's from here, so I split my time a little bit.
That's a cool neighborhood. That's a cool city too, from what I've heard.
Yeah, it's a huge entrepreneurial area, which is great. I've been going to a bunch of events, and it just seems like everyone downtown here is into some sort of business, which is really cool to be around.
Man, I want to get down there. I honestly haven't been down there yet. I just heard great things like co-working spaces, people doing different startups and stuff. It's a mini tech bubble, I guess.
Yeah, most definitely. And not just tech. I mean, even the stuff that I'm doing and talking to other people who are doing similar kind of product design projects as well. So, I mean, any sort of business you're into, it's a great spot to be.
Very cool. Also, I imagine the prices are a lot better than New York City or San Francisco, which is always a plus.
Yeah, I think it's getting close to it, though, in terms of prices to San Fran, just because it's so popular here now.
Really? Wow, I did not know that. Man. Okay. I'll have to go and check it out and let you know what I think. So you started this company from Australia. Can you walk us through really discovering the problem or this thing you're trying to solve with this product? Can you walk us through the story there of you discovering that this is something that's just needed in the world? Can you share that with the listeners? Yeah,
definitely. So probably 2 and a bit years ago was when I first came up with the idea, and the background to it is I worked in professional sports back home, which for American listeners would be the equivalent of working for an NBA or an NFL for Cricket Australia, which is our national sport. And part of the job was traveling for 6 months a year, which means on and off planes 4 or 5 times a week, different hotel beds most nights. And so I'd always have a really tight back and sore body from traveling all over the place. And typically when I'm at home, I would reach for my foam roller, which would sit in my lounge room and roll out the body, and the body would feel much better. But when you're on the road, you're not about to travel with a big clunky foam roller unless you want to give up half your luggage, which is a compromise you can't really make. So kind of after all these regular trips of coming home with my body all beat up, I thought to myself, why can't I have my foam roller with me on the road? And that was kind of the genesis of the product. And I initially sat on it for a little bit and thought, this is something I definitely want, but then got distracted by business, went back to my work. And then I started playing around with some clunky concepts, and I mean, I laugh about it now, but the first thing I started playing around with was the inner cardboard tube of paper towel for the kitchen, because I was just trying to find something that was a tube shape that I could cut and kind of mess around with and turn into really crude concepts. And so that's where it started. And
hey, got to start somewhere.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, it's funny that I think about it now. I actually wish I'd taken some photos at the time, because I think it'd be funny to look back on seeing where the product is now from where it started. And I guess going back to your question around how did I know this is a pain point, it was my own pain point first. And I felt, I mean, I'm not unique. I'd love to think I'm super unique, but I'm not. And I know if I've got this pain point, there's got to be other people out there who've got the same pain point. And initially it was kind of just chatting to other people around me, and they all agreed. Like anyone who's tried to travel with a foam roller knows it's a huge pain.
Even this past weekend, we're recording this now. Thanksgiving was pretty recent, and I love to go to the gym. I love to run. I use the foam roller at the gym just because from sitting so much at a desk, my hamstrings get like really tight, my legs get really tight. But when you're traveling, I'm going home for Thanksgiving, that's a good few days where I don't have access to the gym. I'm feeling tight. I'd love to do some yoga, but it really would be great if I just had something like that was portable, like a foam roller. So that way, if I'm sitting on trains, sitting with the car, all that kind of stuff, I can loosen up that way. It's a lot easier.
Yeah, most definitely. You've just pretty much sold my product for me in the exact pitch that I use when I talk to people. It's that ability to not compromise your health just because you're on the road. And that's kind of the gap I'm trying to bridge, not only with this product, but future products, that just because we travel, we shouldn't have to compromise our health. So what can we do to make sure that's not the case?
Do you find this is something that people usually use if they're like me and they're really active, they're going to the gym a lot? Is this for people that are into yoga, or is it honestly just like an everyday for a worker? I've never gone to the gym, but this is going to help me stretch out my muscles.
I mean, it's a combination. I mean, you've got the people, just like a typical foam roller, you've got professional athletes who use a foam roller. And it was funny, when I used to travel working in professional sports, the team would travel with these 2 huge bags of foam rollers that one poor staff member had to lug around on and off planes the whole time. So that kind of crystallized in my mind as well, that there was a need for something that was easy to travel with. But then it's right down to people like you who go to the gym, to people on the other end of the spectrum who perhaps aren't so active, but at the same time they do care about their body. And I mean, convenience is something that pretty much anyone in the world values. So that's what the product brings. Yeah.
So you've discovered this pain point, this pain point that people experience. And it's like, okay, that's cool, but where am I going to go from there? You mentioned that like initial prototype. What were the steps to actually making this product? I don't know if you've made products before, if this is your first one.
No, this is my first one. As I said, I'm from a kind of marketing and PR background. I knew that I was going to very quickly hit the limits of my engineering and design skills. So I kind of worked out some basic clunky concepts, kind of sketched some things up, and then I reached out and started working with a mechanical engineer to begin with, just to kind of flesh out whether this was actually feasible. And then once we got that to a certain point and had done a bunch of 3D prototyping to start with, that's when I kind of built my full team, the team that I've been working with now, and the team that you see on my Kickstarter page, which is a combination of your mechanical engineers, industrial designers, CAD specialists. So I think it was just me knowing that I was going to have to bring a team in around me. Let's get it as far as possible. And once I know there's a product there and I can put it in the hands of these guys who are specialists, and then I can go back to doing the stuff which I do best, which is kind of the marketing and PR side of things. Which
is crucial. I mean, honestly, that can make a massive difference with your campaign, the marketing, the PR. So the fact you have that experience, I think, puts you leg up above other people. And I want to honestly get into a lot of the stuff you've sent me, like how to collect, over 10,000 leads in 4 weeks and all these different things. But before we get to that, so I did want to ask you, I think one of the recurring themes with these different campaigners that I've interviewed, over 180 now, is the amount that you have to build the team and the level of importance that plays in crowdfunding and also in business as a whole. So how did you recruit these team members? Like, are these people who have ownership in the company? Are you paying them? Are they freelancers? Like, how did you discover them and build this team?
So initially it was looking for companies and specialists who'd worked with similar products. That was kind of a starting point for me, because I knew that if I could find other companies that worked in fitness products, that would be a place to start. And from there, I interviewed multiple different design companies. I didn't hand over any equity. I've always worked on the philosophy up until now that if you can pay someone to do a job, you shouldn't be handing over equity. And so, I built a team around me who are part of an industrial design company. And these are guys who had worked on sports products and had actually done their own crowdfunding campaign themselves as well for not a fitness product, but a guitar product. So that kind of gave that extra level of credibility to them, that they know the path that I'm kind of going along. And so that played a big part in it as well.
So this was a big moment for you. I imagine you're investing your savings into the business, or maybe you're getting a loan or something there in order to fund this initial creation of the prototype. That's a very big, like, make it or break it moment.
Yeah, it is, especially when you've quit your job to go after it as well. So what I actually did to try and save costs for the first 6 months, because, I mean, it's been probably about a year and a half's worth of working on it now, is I actually went and lived in Southeast Asia for 6 months just to give myself a bigger runway and save on those costs a little bit, just so I could pretty much put every dollar into building the product.
That's really smart, because number one, you're living in a great climate. You can afford everything a lot better. It's a great standard of lifestyle considering your dollars or your Australian dollars. And number two, it's pretty close to Australia, right?
Yeah, it's not too far. It's, I think, like 6 or 7 hours.
Yeah, that's nothing.
Yeah, exactly. We're in Chiang Mai, which is up north in Thailand, which is an amazing place.
Yeah, the digital nomad territory.
That's right. Yeah, so that's the other thing. You're surrounded by, essentially for me, it was my captive audience. So early on, I was running all these concepts by these people who travel everywhere, tend to be young people who look after their health. So that kind of immediate validation by running these concepts by the people who are around me was really valuable as well.
That's epic. That's a great area too. Like Chiang Mai. I went to Thailand. I didn't get to go to Chiang Mai, but I went to like Bangkok and Phuket and all these other regions, different islands. It's a beautiful country. So that's a great place as well to start a business.
Yeah, definitely. It was very hard to leave as well. I was happy to stay there for longer. The company got to a point where I needed to be back in the Western world, and I mean, you can only do so much remotely. It was funny, because I was doing some of the 3D prototyping over there, and 3D prototyping is not as easy to do in Thailand. As you can imagine, I'd have to go on these crazy adventures on a scooter out through rice fields and into like these big factories out in the middle of nowhere just to get some 3D printing done, and then get back on the scooter and ride for another hour in the other direction. So it was a bit of a madcap adventure at times, but I'm really pleased that I did it, and I think it played a big part in me being able to get to where I am.
Yeah, it sounds like an adventure. And I now want to get into really what you did to set up this campaign for success, because number one, you hit your goal in the first 20 hours. Number two, you massively exceeded, went far beyond your goal, ended up raising just almost $90,000 on Kickstarter from 1,315 backers. That's a lot of people that now are going to have this product in their hands. They're going to be able to try it out, give you feedback. It's going to be very valuable going forward. So in terms of the preparation of the campaign, what was your strategy here?
First thing I did was just geek out on as much info as possible. So I think I mentioned to you, I probably listened to, 20 or 30 of your podcasts and studied, maybe 100 Kickstarter campaigns. And so that was the first thing I did, just to try and get as much data as possible around how people have done other things. And I was actually pretty fortunate that I spoke directly to, I think, 4 or 5 other successful campaign owners. So that was the initial thing I did, just try to understand as much as I could. And then started building that email list, which I mentioned to you in my message to you. I was aware that the sooner I could build that community, the easier it was going to be, and kind of give yourself as much confidence as possible when you hit publish on that first day, that there's people who are there waiting to pledge, and it really eliminates a lot of doubt. So that was a big part of it, just build that community before I got started.
So how big was your actual email list? I mean, people are listening to this show and they're wondering, like, okay, how many emails am I going to need? How much is it going to cost me? When should I start preparing and gathering these? How big was your list? And could you clue us in on like how long it took you to gather it, all that kind of stuff?
Yeah, so my main list was around about 10,000, just under, which
10,000. Jeez.
Yeah, I actually had a second list as well that I built, which was another 5 or I was actually a bit more than that, 1,000 that was built through competitions, which didn't really convert that well, just because the values of your leads built through offering competitions isn't as great as the direct sign-ups that I got for my main list. And it probably took me a bit over 4 weeks to build that 10,000 lead list, and that was pretty much solely on Facebook ads, but then making sure that I created videos that were shareable. So a lot of my pre-campaign content was shared, which helped me get my lead costs right down to around about that 20-cent mark.
You were getting 20 cents per email.
Yeah.
That's insane, dude. That is insane. When you talk about gathering these leads on Facebook, were you doing like the Facebook lead functionality? Were you setting them to like a landing page? Were you doing, optimizing for a conversion? How are you doing those?
Yeah, so I tried some of that direct lead capture on Facebook, but didn't have much success for it. So it was sending to a landing page and capturing using obviously the conversion pixel set up for lead capture on my landing page, and then using the discounts that I was going to be providing through Kickstarter as kind of the motivation to get people to sign up on my landing page.
So what was that landing page? What did that look like? Like I come on the landing page, what do I see? And what are the things like, is it your photos? Is it you're talking about what the product is and you? Like what did you include on that?
Yeah, a combination of that and video. So video, I mean, everything I did on Facebook was video pre-campaign. And on the page itself was the same thing. I had really strong video as well as images. It's a real visual image and kind of visual product that really needs that demonstration of showing the foam roller collapsed and the foam roller expanded. So that was key to it. Beyond that, it wasn't a heap of copy. I mean, your basic copy explaining what it does, but then my target audience is people who already foam roll. So I'm not really needing to educate them on the benefits of foam rolling. What I'm trying to educate them on is the benefits of this foam roller, which collapses and makes their life easier because it means they can travel with a foam roller everywhere. So that was something I was really conscious of, is I'm not trying to convince someone to buy a foam roller. I'm trying to convince a foam roller owner to try this foam roller instead.
The value of yours, and also I guess the value of signing up for the actual announcement of the campaign. I think a lot of people will sell products online being like, oh, join this email list to get notified, that kind of stuff. Did you say like these are going to be early bird reward tiers? Is this going to be like sign up for updates? How did you do that call to action? I had to interrupt this podcast episode because I want to introduce you to my friends at The Gadget Flow. Their product discovery platform reaches 22 million people per month. They've helped more than 5,000 crowdfunding campaigns thus far, and they have a social media following of more than 700,000 followers. If you want to gain access to their marketplace and list your own product, you can go to thegadgetflow.com/submit and list your project today.
Yeah, it was sign up and get access to the discounts first. One mistake I did make is I presumed too many people understood how Kickstarter worked, and so I just said launching on Kickstarter, and then when I actually launched, I had a lot of people saying, hey, I thought this was ready to go today, so they didn't really understand what Kickstarter was. So that probably hit my conversion a little bit, I think, once I hit publish on the campaign. Mm-hmm. But what I also did is, once I had the email list built, I kept them engaged. And I think that was a really important thing. So I spliced up my campaign video into 3 parts, and then I would send out one of those every week just to keep them engaged and give them more of a look before everyone else. So kind of like create that exclusivity, saying, hey, you've kind of trusted in me and believed in me to join my email list. I want to reward you by giving you a look at this product and more of this product before anyone else in the world gets to look at it. And I kind of continued on that exclusivity by opening the campaign page to them about half an hour early. So kind of send an email to them the day before saying, hey, I'm going to open up half an hour early, plus I'm going to offer everyone on my list access to a launch exclusive, which was only $39, which is significantly lower than the price of the product. So again, just trying to reward people, because these people who have trusted in your product and believed in your product super early, and like, what can I do to help them to say thanks for supporting us earlier on? So that played a big part. And knowing that once I hit go, like I had people minutes before the campaign emailing me saying, hey, aren't you going to press publish already? Hurry up and do it. I want to back you. So that was kind of a good result from building that pre-launch campaign.
What I love about that is, number one, you're building the relationship. You only have 4 weeks to go, let's just say, before we launch this. But at that same time, you're starting to get in front of these people. They're getting a sense of your name, of the product, what it looks like. And the more that they see it, the more they're kind of sold on it. They're thinking like, wow, that would be really cool. Or like, oh, I could use it for these different things. So you're actually kind of encouraging people to fantasize a little bit about what it'd be like to own this. So when they actually come to the page, they're already sold. Like, they don't have to go and look through and read lots of stuff and make a decision. It's like they can make the decision right there to back it, and it looks like it worked.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, that's exactly right. It is, Ed, that you want these people to get to the page and hit pledge straight away. And actually, I remember when I pressed publish on the page, and before it could even refresh for me to check everything was okay, I'd already had like 2 backers. which kind of validated everything I'd done in that lead up and convinced people that this is the product they wanted and they didn't have to go through and read everything on the page once it was live.
What did that feel like? I mean, hitting your goals so early. You read about these things online, or we listen to podcasts like mine. It's like, oh yeah, these people are out there raising money. You end up quitting your job. You have so much on the line. What did it feel like to have that validation within the first 20 hours?
Yeah, it's pretty incredible. It's funny because I felt like I was well prepared, given having a decent list, but you never really know when you hit publish. Like, you always have doubts and you're a little bit nervous. What's anyone going to think of this once I actually press live, and like start almost talking yourself out of doing it. But yeah, once I hit publish and I saw those initial 2 backers, and I've actually spoken to the guy who was my first backer, it was pretty incredible just to see how quickly someone backed you. And I think within 10 minutes I was up around 3,000 or something like that. It was pretty quick, that initial spurt, and it was, yeah, it kind of blew my mind, if I'm honest. And after working on it for 12 plus months, it's a pretty nice feeling. And I just remember that sense of relief having done that and seen the response, which was a good feeling, as you said, especially given I'd quit my job and gone on a bit of a journey to get to where I am.
Well, I think you've certainly put in a lot of work, because just browsing through your page, it's beautiful. You know, have like amazing GIFs. You have a really great video, very high quality. So it's pretty clear that you've invested a lot into the project. So coming here, seeing that, it's like, oh wow, this guy is taking it seriously. And you've also been featured in a lot of media publications as well. Yeah,
and I probably owe a bit to the images and the videos. I actually called on friends who I used to work with in the media when I worked in PR, and like a couple of a videographer and a photographer who are some of the best in Australia, who were kind enough to come and help me out, which played a big part in making that page look really good. And but yeah, I agonized over what the page looked like for, I don't know, maybe 2 months. Yeah, I definitely put a lot of time into it, and it was something I was really conscious of, because I mean, as you know, as anyone knows, that there's a huge perception when it comes to selling anything in Kickstarter or selling anything in general. Like, if it looks professional, and it's much more likely to convert.
Yeah, exactly. One other thing I did want to ask you about, so there are a few different strategies here that we're talking about now. The pre-launch email list, I think you just really knocked it out of the park with that. And I think once you have that launch and you get that initial flurry of activity, after that, it's like, wow, that was so cool. But then it's like, okay, what are we going to do now to continue to promote this campaign? And one of the things that I always mention to people is looking into PR and getting on media publications and reaching out to bloggers and these different things. So you have a very, expansive history with PR and marketing, and you also were featured in a lot of these. What is your thoughts or your advice to the listeners in terms of how did you get on these publications? Did it actually help with your campaign? Did it not help? Can you share a little bit of that?
Yeah, sure. So it's funny, because while I come from a PR background, I still feel like I could have done PR better. It's just that, I mean, when I worked in PR, I was exclusively in PR, but having to run everything in this campaign, I probably didn't put enough forethought into it. Like, I always started pitching the week beforehand. So if I was anyone else, I would start pitching prior to that, and kind of the same way that I pitch to you, make sure that you're pitching value to the publication. That's naturally, you kind of ask to be published, and it's kind of you taking all the value from them, but what can you do to offer value to the publication you're pitching to? And something else that always need to be conscious of is each publication is going to have a different interest and want to have a different focus. So work out when you're pitching, is this the outlet's going to be more interested? Some are going to be more interested in your product if it's a super unique product. All they want to do is focus on the product, whereas a different kind of outlet might be more interested, if you're a more kind of news-ish outlet, they'll be more interested in your backstory. So what interesting backstory can you tell? So for some outlets, I would pitch the fact that I left my job, that I used to work in professional sports, that I moved to Thailand, because that was of more interest. Other ones, like Gear Junkie and that, couldn't care less about my story. They just wanted to focus on the product, because that's what they do. They focus on products. So really kind of segmenting your PR and understanding what's of most interest to those different outlets, and then targeting based on that and trying to offer them value. And so for you, for instance, I was trying to offer the value of, hey, I'm a first-time campaign runner. I know there's others who listen to you. I've just done this. I've just learned a ton. I've just made a lot of mistakes. How can I help your listeners via your podcast? So that's something I was kind of conscious of.
I think the perception here is that a lot of these media publications or a lot of bloggers can just like write about whatever they want, and it's not true. You have an audience that you're catering to. Like, if I started to talk about something that I don't know very much about, I don't know, like fashion or something, people wouldn't listen to me because I'm not credible about it. And it's also not the content that they want to tune into. But for tips and things related to crowdfunding, obviously people are really interested in that. So when you pitch that to me, it's just saying like, oh, I can totally see an interview on this and the value he can bring to the audience, versus if it's like a me-centric story, it's very jumbled, there's a lot of text and I don't really clearly get the sense of like, what is this going to, what are people going to take away? It's going to be hard for me to say yes to that person. And I also think it's really perceptive of you, the fact that you're sharing individual parts of your story with these different publications. You're not sharing your entire story. You're going into what they care most about. I think that's really perceptive of you.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, you and every other outlet are about creating value for their audience. So what can you, as someone who's pitching to them, do to help and make your job easier and help provide value to your audience? So that's kind of the main focus with everyone I pitch to.
What has been for you doing this project? Seeing the success, seeing all of these people support your project, and really this is a culmination of a year-long dream of yours to launch this and get it into the hands of people. What has been the most satisfying or the most fun part of this experience?
In terms of satisfying is far, I think getting that validation after, as I said, working on it for 12 months, and particularly with product design, anyone who's done it knows it can get pretty lonely. Like, you spend months on end working on prototypes that you can't really show anyone because they don't really look like a final product and they only make sense to you. So having been in that kind of period of just dealing with your own prototypes and products and finally putting something out into the world and getting that response from Kickstarter backers, which has been incredible, and just how supportive people are on Kickstarter and their willingness to engage with you, the messages they send to you. And I think that having that direct interaction with people who have backed your product is amazing. That not only does it validate your idea, but you can have that interaction with people and kind of speak to them on a daily basis if you want to. So I think that's been a massive highlight for me.
I think that when people take a look at your project, or they're hearing about your marketing and your PR experience, it's like, well, obviously he can do that. Like, he's experienced in that, and he knows what to do and how to approach people and do these different things like gather leads, etc. But what about me? So in order to sort of make you a little bit more relatable, I want to ask you, has there ever been a point during this journey where you weren't sure if things were going to work out? Or do you have any mistakes that you made that you would have done differently as you've been doing and gearing up for this campaign? I'm speaking to the crowdfunders in the audience who have already launched a Kickstarter campaign, or have actually even successfully run a campaign. And the reason is, I think you will understand this pain point most. And that is, when you finally do raise money on Kickstarter or Indiegogo, the hardest part is not collecting the cash. The hardest part is shipping out all of those perks and rewards to your backers. It is a nightmare, my friends. It's a lot of spreadsheets, it's a lot of headache, and it's a lot of stress. That's why I recommend BackerKit. If you have not heard of BackerKit, they help you collect surveys, they help you collect data, and the entire fulfillment process is just so much easier and so many less spreadsheets when you use their software. You can check them out at backerkit.com and use CrowdCrux for a special discount.
Yeah, probably every other day where you think that you're maybe not doing the right thing. Like, it's so common. You constantly have doubts, and you continue to have doubts. It's just a matter of pushing through them and staying focused on what you're doing. I mean, I made a ton of mistakes. I probably made more mistakes than I did things right, but it's just making sure that when you do things right, they have a big effect. Starting to build my email list sooner, I would have done that. I mean, 10,000 sounds great, but I could have, I think, built it sooner, and I could have used more of my ad spend to build that, I think. And then the key is just to make sure you're engaging that email list if you do start sooner. As I mentioned, the PR planning, I could have got on that a bit earlier. I still had some good results, but probably could have got that on earlier.
Would you have done anything differently with Facebook ads?
Yeah, I think I would have spent more of my budget pre-campaign, just because, I mean, I was aware that you couldn't use the pixel as part of the campaign, but for whatever reason, I just didn't think how much of a handicap it would be until I actually did it. Like, you don't appreciate the pixel until it's taken away from you, I think, with Facebook. So you're flying a bit blind when you're doing your Facebook ads throughout the campaign. So I think I probably would have put more into the pre-campaign, built up that list even more, because then not only can you use that email list directly, but you can use it to build your lookalike audiences during the campaign, which I had some quite good success with as well.
Nice. Oh yeah, I think you've had a lot of great success, and you've learned a tremendous amount that you can now apply to if you're doing another Kickstarter or if you're setting up an online store. What's sort of the big vision here? Like, do you want to build the next sort of fitness products company? Do you want to build a really big online store? Do you want to do more Kickstarter campaigns? What's the future like?
A combination of those things. So broadly, how I look at my company, and this being the first product of it, is portable fitness. I mean, we live in a more remote world and more transient world than we ever have, and trying to bridge that gap that I mentioned before between being able to up and travel and go anywhere in the world and still look after your health. Because I mean, it's so common that like, all right, I'm going to go travel for 4 weeks. I'll just forget about my health for 4 weeks and sort it out when I get home. So just trying to bridge that gap with products that allow you to look up after yourself on the road. So I mean, this is the first product, and I'm still a long way from having everything finalized. But then I've got about 10 other product ideas I want to move into next. And I mean, given this experience with Kickstarter and the amount I've learned from doing it, I would definitely go this route. I think, again, just as I keep coming back to, is the community's such amazing support. They're early adopters. They're people that can give you that validation. Like, if you bring in a new product to market, I don't think that there's a better community of people you can put it in front of, just because these are people who are open-minded and want to adopt things early on. So if they take it on, it's really good validation for what you're doing.
Mm-hmm. Well said. Well said. Where can people go and check out your product? Where can they look at your Kickstarter and any upcoming ones that you might have? Where can they go to learn a little bit more about you and what you have to offer?
Sure. So the website at the moment is www.neofitroller.com. So neofitroller.com. If you just look up Neofit Roller on Kickstarter, you'll find my campaign, and across all social media, it's Neofit Co. To look us up. And we are still doing in demand on Indiegogo too. So the campaign will be live on there for a few more months.
Very cool. I honestly, I love the design of the product. It is kind of cool, like the way that it shrinks up. And it's very portable. You can easily see how you can put this in like your backpack or just in your suitcase. You can extend it, and then you have a foam roller. And everyone, I mean, if you've never used one of these foam rollers, you definitely have to try it. Either go to the gym or get a cheap one, or even check out this one and try it out, because I found that, particularly since I'm sitting just long periods of time, my muscles get like really tight in my hamstrings and also, my quads. So when I use a foam roller, it just kind of like improves the overall circulation. And I've just found it to really help also with my back, my lower back pain. I mean, we're getting a lot here into my health, but it really does help with that, because all these muscles are connected. So when you use a foam roller, it's going to just make it a lot easier getting through the day. You're going to have higher energy, and I've just found it to be improvement in my life.
Yeah, most definitely. And that's exactly why I created it. And as you said, we sit still probably more than we ever have in our lives as well. So being able to just kind of jump up and use a foam roller, even for 5 or 10 minutes a couple of times a day, that's going to help a lot.
Yeah, definitely. Well, Sebastian, thank you so much for coming on the show here. I have one final question for you, but first I just wanted to thank you for sharing all of that great information with crowdfunders, also for paying it forward, coming back on the show, the one you listened to, and sort of sharing your own story and sharing what's been working for you, raising money on Kickstarter. My final question for you here is, thinking back to the time when you were, first getting educated, listening to this show and other ones, other blogs and etc. You're sort of in a point in time where there's a lot of uncertainty and you're not sure exactly what to do. So my question for you is, if you could talk to yourself at the beginning of that process and either give yourself a word of encouragement, a final tip, something you wish you knew then, would love it if you could take a second to just talk to the audience and share that with them.
Yeah, that's a great question. It's funny because it's only about 5 weeks ago where I was at that point, but it feels like about a year ago. I think starting as early as possible when it comes to planning is something I would definitely tell myself. And the other one is, I don't think you're ever going to feel 100% ready. Like, even though I had my 10,000 list and I was feeling pretty confident, you never feel 100% ready. And there's that temptation to I'll just push it back. But sometimes you just need to do it and trust the process and see what happens. It'll work out in the end. And even if it doesn't work out, it's not the end of the world. You go back, you reload, and you try again. So I still remember how nervous I was when I was about to press that publish button on my campaign. But at the same time, I'm so thankful that I did, and so thankful for the support I got. And like I said to you, listening to your podcast in advance was Really great for kind of understanding the process a bit more, and particularly as a first-time listener, like gather as much data as you can. And I mean, I'd be happy to answer any questions from anyone who's listening who's a first-time campaign creator, because the more people you can speak to, the better.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much for that, and thanks for coming on the show. We'll have to have you back.
Most definitely. Thanks very much, Sal.
Thank you for listening to this episode of the Crowdfunding Demystified podcast. Again, my name is Salvador Briggman. Thank you for spending a little bit of time here with me today, learning about how to actually raise money on Kickstarter, how to raise money with crowdfunding, and how to do it in a way that it's mainly science, but also part art. You know, I can't control the product that you're making. I can't control the degree to which you put into your images and your video and all that kind of stuff. But what I can do with this show, and also my blog, the YouTube channel, my books, my courses, etc., is I can give you the blueprint. I can give you the formula that you need to follow if you instantly want to get funding on Kickstarter. And this episode was a great example of someone who listened to it, they applied the strategies, it worked, and they hit their goal, 100% of their goal, within the first 20 hours. This is something that anyone out there in the listenership can do. You listen to this podcast right now, no matter where you are. You don't have to be in the United States. You don't have to be in a major hub of technology or startups or anything like that. You can launch a campaign from anywhere almost and get funding from the crowd. You just have to apply a strategy that works. So go and dive into some of the other episodes. The one that the guest listened to was episode number 129, the Lomography interview. I've gotten also significantly better at the podcast over the years. So you might go back into the archives and hear some very embarrassing interviews, at least from my standpoint. But I've gotten a lot better at the podcast over the years. And finally, the last thing I want to leave you with here is, if you do want to join a community, you do want to join other people who are going through this process, other listeners of this podcast, other people who follow my work, my blog, my YouTube channel, etc., you can go to kickstarterforum.org. That is kickstarterforum.org. And there, all you have to do is, register, put in some information, your email, username, etc. It's free. You can join a community of people that are going through the same experience as you. And you can also share the link to your campaign. You can share things you're learning. You can get advice and tips from other people. Sometimes I'll do promos there. So there are a lot of different reasons to join, but I think that the main one is you'll be among a group of people that are also going through this experience, and you can learn from them, and you can also share what's working for you and what's not. So that is kickstarterforum.org. Thank you so much for tuning into today's podcast episode, and I will see you next time.